All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about a massive investment today, but really, it's a story that pulls back the curtain on a huge shift happening in global finance. And it all kicks off with one pretty eye-popping number. Okay, here it is, $79 million. Just let that sit there for a sec. You know, that's the kind of money that doesn't just get spent, it gets deployed. It's a move on a chessboard. And as you'll see, it's a clue to something way, way bigger. So you gotta ask, right? What does a legendary billionaire family, a family that literally built a global empire, buy with that kind of cash? I'll tell you one thing, it's not just a casual stock pick. No, this is a calculated, super strategic bet. And that's what we're gonna unpack right now, what that bet is, and honestly, why it's such a big deal. All right, first things first, let's look at the deal itself, this $79 million bet, and, the company that's on the receiving end. So here's the who's who. On one side, you've got the Lowy family group. This is the private investment arm of the family that built that massive Westfield shopping empire you've probably heard of. And the company they're putting their money into, it's called Magellan Financial Group, an Australian asset manager. So for that $79 million, they picked up a 5.1% piece of the company. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. 5.1%. That doesn't sound like a ton, right? But trust me, in the world of big public companies, that is a huge deal. It makes the Lowy family what's called a substantial shareholder. That means they get a real voice, a real seat at the table. This is anything but a passive investment. It's a massive statement. And wow, did the market notice? The second this news hit, Magellan's stock shot up by almost 9%. And that makes total sense, right? When a family with a track record of the Lowys puts their stamp of approval on something, while everybody else sits up and pays attention. It's like the ultimate vote of confidence. But here's the thing, that $79 million, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. To get what's really going on here, you have to look at this absolutely huge transformation that was happening right behind the curtain. And this is the number that tells the real story, $1.6 billion. That's the price tag on a massive merger Magellan announced with an investment bank called Barrenjoey. And get this, they announced it just days before the Lowy family jumped in. The timing here is absolutely critical. You see, this merger completely changes what Magellan is. Before, they were kind of your standard asset manager, right? They managed funds. But after this deal, they're becoming this diversified financial services powerhouse. They're into everything now. Investment banking, wealth management, you name it. And that's when the light bulb goes on. See? The Lowys aren't just buying a slice of some sleepy, old-school fund manager. No way. They are making a massive bet on the future of this brand new, supercharged, much more ambitious company. They're not just buying stock, they're backing the whole transformation. So let's talk about the family behind the money for a minute, because their history is super important here. To really get why they made this move, you gotta understand their playbook. I mean, this family's journey is just incredible. They built the Westfield shopping mall empire, a global giant, basically from scratch. Then, back in 2018, they sold it in this monster deal for almost $25 billion. And ever since, their family office has been very, very carefully putting that capital back to work, with a really sharp eye on financial services. And these guys have a very specific playbook. They don't just spread their money out. Nope. They take big, concentrated bets on just a few companies. They like financial institutions, and this is the key part, they love to find companies that are going through a huge structural change. Does that sound familiar? I mean, the Magellan deal just ticks every single one of those boxes. It's a perfect fit.
Okay, so we've got the deal, we've got the players. Now I want to zoom out with you, because this one investment is actually a window into a massive global trend. And that's the rise of something called dynastic capital.
So what the heck is dynastic capital? It's actually pretty simple. It's just all that massive wealth that's controlled by these billionaire-led family offices, like the Lowys. But here's what makes it so different, their timeline. They're not worried about next quarter's profits. They're literally thinking generations down the road. In that long-term view, that's what makes this kind of money so incredibly powerful. Think about it. Most big investors, they're obsessed with short-term gains. If a stock dips, they might get spooked and sell. But this dynastic capital, it's patient. It's what people call patient capital. It's there to be a stabilizing force, an anchor, for a company that's trying to pull off a big, multi-year change. So here's the big takeaway, the really critical point. These powerful family offices, they're not just playing the stock market anymore. They're actually buying the plumbing of the market itself. They're becoming long-term strategic owners of the core financial institutions that make everything run. All right, so let's put a bow on this. Why does any of this matter? Well, for a company like Magellan, getting a thumbs up from a name like Lowy is a massive shot of credibility, especially when you're in the middle of a big change. And that patient capital acts like a rock, a stabilizer. But zooming all the way out, this whole thing points to a huge theme for the coming years. Dynastic wealth isn't just investing in the system anymore, it's starting to own the system.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating, kind of provocative question to chew on, doesn't it? As these massive family fortunes keep getting bigger and get deployed with this kind of laser-like precision, are they becoming the new kingmakers of finance?
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for digging into this with me.